no. Let's make sure this is a good use of people's time. I'm really grateful that folk have given up, half an hour of their time, and so I want to make sure it's a good use of their time. So look, why don't we kick off? I'll stop sharing the background, and we'll begin. So hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name's Andrew Hunt. I'm one of the founders of Get Cambion, and I'm joined by Aaron Smith, who's one of Australia's leading MSP sales coaches. Aaron's been doing it for as long as I've known you, which must be 18 years now, and coaching a number of MSPs down under. And good to have you here. We're at IT Nation, as I said earlier on. They're setting up the trade show and the conference behind us. So there's people running around out of screenshot with sort of trolleys, and they're all some of them looking a bit stressed, some are looking a bit relaxed. There's people putting up banners and all of that paraphernalia that goes with these things. But there's a hell of a buzz here. So clearly people are excited to be at IT Nation. And we're certainly excited to be here and exhibiting. So if anyone on this call is coming along, booth 106, come and check us out. We'd be keen to have a chat. And we're in fact hosting some drinks in a couple of hours down by the pool here at the Rose and Shingle Creek. But today, as I said, we're joined by Aaron. Aaron, just want to sort of share a bit about your story before we kick on and talk about how you help MSPs win.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite. Good. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. So thank you very much. I walked in about 12 years ago into a little MSP called Correct Solutions in Sydney. Walked through the door, told the guy running the joint, some of you might have heard of Fuzzy, that I'm going to be your future sales and marketing manager. Walked in and was told, yes, you can start as an account manager, and worked my way up from there. I had the privilege of joining the likes of Andrew and a bunch of other business owners as part of the Evolve program. So I spent the better part of the last 8 odd years that Andrew's referencing inside Evolve owners groups, actually sitting there. Eventually started sort of running Correct Solutions presentations and engagement alongside Ryan, who was facilitating as well as participating. I got to hear and understand what a lot of the owner challenges are, where they sat, and being the only real sales representative in the room, because most of you are techs, most of you start as techs, and most of you go to a certain point and then go, well, now what? Sales is that inevitable point traditionally where the next level starts. And so being able to have access to that room, access to those people, gave me a phenomenal insight into what business owners, MSP business owners specifically, are being challenged by, and where ultimately sales can assist.
So Aaron, why do you think it is that MSP owners can sell, they can talk to a business, they can have a conversation that generates opportunities?
Yep.
But then they go and start building out a sales team, and the sales team doesn't quite have that same success that the owner has. What do you reckon's going on there?
The main thing that I see there is that you as a business owner are coming from a position of power and authority. You are the smart guy in the room. You know what you're talking about. You can talk rings around those CEOs and CFOs when it comes to technology and what it does for their business, and you can translate those things really well. What most salespeople lack is that ability to have a business conversation, unless they're in a very strategic focused sales process. Most tend to be tick and flick. Most sales are process sales, product sales, and away they go, and they move on to the next one, where MSP sales is not like that. MSP sales is long-term relationships. It's there's a cheeky little adage called breaking up marriages that gets thrown around here down in the sales groups that I look after for Evolve. You are breaking up marriages. Either people are happy with their IT company and you can't pry them away for love or money, maybe money, but then they're probably not the right customer, or they're unhappy and they're ready to move and they're looking for something different. That sort of challenger approach doesn't tend to exist, and the only people who can have that conversation are you guys as the business owners.
One of the words that came up in our customer advisory board meeting last week that I really loved from one of your people you coach actually was trust. Mm-hmm. And I really like that. So they reckon the key to it was trust. How do you think trust is established in those relationships?
The biggest challenge with sales is that comes down to time. And so when you bring someone in to replace you, bring someone to build that sales team around you, or you hire your first sales admin or account manager, they take time, far longer than you will, to build that trust by engagement and talking to people. what we built about sort of 4 or 5 years ago, again, privileged enough to be sitting in the room with Andrew and sort of access to get Cambium very, very early on in the piece. Cambium asks questions differently. You know, from a Get Cambium standpoint, it's asking about business. It's not there pushing projects down people's throats. That's the expected outcome, and that'll fall out of the conversation. But I'm sitting there talking about your business. What's going on? So even the most basic salesperson who doesn't quite get that yet can follow a seemingly bouncing ball and ask intelligent business questions of the people, and it'll help you build that trust far faster because you're not just going, hey, how can I sell you something? I'm actually talking to you about your business and what's going on in your world first.
I think that's right. But one of my observations, having been selling as because I still own my MSP, of course, is that all of our customers have got the same sorts of business goals that we have in our own business. You want to grow revenue, you want to mitigate a risk, you want to automate a process, you want to try and make something happen swifter, more accurately, more quickly, more reliably. And in every case, technology is key to that. And I can't believe how big the opportunity is, particularly now that there's such a wealth of cloud products available that can do literally everything. The opportunity for an MSP to get in and do more than simply make the IT work is phenomenal, but you can't do that unless you know what's important to your client and you can prioritize those down to where you can help them, and those are the opportunities that go into your CRM. How do you find when you're coaching MSPs they go at loading their CRM? Do you find them tend to be accurate? Do you find them tend to be hopeful? Do you find them tend to be missing?
It's one of two facets. One, you either get a what's a CRM, that they know what it is. They know what, ConnectWise as an example, or whatever you're using. They know what it is. They use it for customers. They might use it for ticket management, but at no point in time have they ever really considered, or they're starting to scratch the surface maybe of an opportunity management pipeline. And that part is a gap for me. The other option is they've had a handful of salespeople at some point. They've tried it. They've built a CRM full of everything. And the best example I offered, I walked into a new client sales meeting the other day, and there's a $3.5 million pipeline that's closing by the end of November.
Really?
There's no way that's happening. There's clearly no way that's happening. And so a lot of where I start and ask the first lot of questions is I'm walking in there going, how much of this is accurate? And it's where I spend some of the first 90 days of my effort actually tidying up that pipeline, understanding what it is with the lens that if you come to me as a business owner and go, where are we likely to land at the end of this month and where are we likely to land at the end of this quarter, so that I can plan revenue, plan growth, plan evolution, and all the things that you want to do, I can come back to you with a number that's within one standard deviation at the very least of where I think we'll land based on the data that I have that's now accurate.
Yeah. So the way we do that is you get your customers to use Get Cambium. Yeah, that's all of your MSPs. Thank you.
Yep.
We love that. How does that help you to achieve that basic requirement of getting a reliable opportunity list?
It's consistent at that point in time because we're asking the same questions, because we're sort of interrogating those same customers in the same ways. We know the opportunities, we know what they look like. We can build programs around them or find the appropriate people to partner with. It's one of the critical things that all MSPs need to do is understand whether you are building that product yourself, whether you're buying that product or service from someone else, or whether you're partnering with someone else to actually deliver it. And all three of those are options depending on the particular product you're talking about. And I think it is really knowing what your lane is, what the parallel lane is, and what are the lanes that you absolutely do not want to touch. Cambium can uncover all of those, and it's one of the comments that I make at the very start. We might not be doing this particular project for you, but our role as your advisors is to sit here and guide you on the things that you've told me actually are the gaps to your business, because they're the ones validating that the problems that you're uncovering are actually problems for them. It's not me telling. So
the key words is being the trusted IT advisor, because you understand your customer. They know you understand them. They know that you know what's important to them, and you've mapped out a plan to get there.
100%. And it's all in one nice, neat document, one nice, neat presentation, whichever format you want to use that's branded to your business, that looks and feels like you, that's presented in your language, in your way. The flexibility that you can get to deliver that is, it's fantastic.
So do you find with your MSPs, you go and obviously Get Cambium, you get a ton of content to start with. But I guess you go into that and you customize that for each MSP. So if they're in, say healthcare or retail, if their customers in a particular vertical market or have a particular flavor to them, you can customize that to show the expertise of the MSP.
Yeah, so it's absolutely the customization and the conversation you have on the way through running those questions is where the immediate value sits, because you're not just going away, filling in a report and landing a thing that goes thump on someone's desk. It's the art of the conversation that ultimately adds the value and builds that trust. The system and the tool can absolutely be customized. And this is something that where, again, having started with Get Cambium 4 or 5 years ago now, could be longer, and now to where it's at now, the flexibility that's there for you to actually build your own questionnaires, tailor them to how you want to deliver services into each of those customers, and then how you want to deliver that sort of trust building activities over each quarter, each month, each year, each whatever period you so choose to have, that strategic conversation with your clients, and then the ability to break that down into quarterly chunks and run a more tactical quarterly business review that's integrated with whichever system you use, is it's there and it works and it keeps the conversation on track ultimately.
So you walk into an MSP and they've got a sales team. Maybe you're helping hire them. Maybe they've got some folk there already.
Yep.
My experience, again, almost 30 years running an MSP, is it's really hard to find good sales colleagues.
Yep.
Sometimes you get lucky, but more often than not, the reason the people you just hired were available on the job market, well, there was a reason why they were available, and and so you get all sorts of people growing through that. What's your experience then of taking, say, a more junior, new to salesperson and helping them succeed?
One of the benefits, I guess, of working with myself, I've been doing this since I was, my mother says I've been selling since I arrived on the earth. So, good on her. I've, talking and selling for that period of time. But in terms of the ability to educate and evolve salespeople, as I said, the ability for this platform, this tool to take you and turn you from a product pushing salesperson into someone who can have an intelligent business conversation is far faster. You'll achieve that outcome far quicker. And ultimately, I think with what you're looking for with these people is you also standardize their conversation. You stop them going off on some little tangent. You stop that. One of the key things that I look at when I first walk into a business is what's working, what's not working. Now, I like the Patterson model: what's right, what's wrong, what's missing, and what's confused. That wrong and needs to change, missing and needs to be created, and confused and needs to be tailored is often a massive part of a sales environment. Because either you're creating it from scratch or sales is breaking everything around them. It's often getting that first pass from sales into the rest of the business right, that sales needs to engage in a consistent manner, ask the right questions to give pre-sales, give the technical services team the information they need to either scope a project or deliver a project, and asking those questions in a consistent way is critical. And again, coming back to it, Get Cambium provides that in a consistent manner that then feeds nicely into the business in the way the business wants it to.
So if we look at business problem, so we're businesses, the MSPs, we're talking about business conversations with clients, but our own business problem is getting those guys up to speed.
Yeah.
So does that mean that you can stick a more demanding quota on some of these guys? Does that mean you see them return to value quicker? What's the payoff in terms of that young salesperson now actually starting to pay their salary, basically?
Yeah, so it is much faster. That tends to be faster purely because you've got a system that can uncover the opportunities. You've still got the client problem. Clients still have to have the budget. Clients still have to have the need. The biggest challenge there that you're facing, though, is if you're not having that conversation with clients, then that's my job as sales management to educate those guys. Salespeople are either really good at having conversations or really good at closing things. And eventually they get good at both. And that's time. And I don't really care where you sit on that scale. I can either teach you how to have the conversation or I can teach you how to close. I just need to see that. And that's where that pipeline management sits in play, because my revenue either stops at the start where it goes into pre-sales and I'm trying to create the quotes, or it stops coming through down the bottom where it comes to negotiation with clients to get them over the line. So evolution of salespeople absolutely trains them up faster, gets them engaged faster, all of those bits and pieces that between Andrew and I, we're sort of putting into your business, from a system to go and have the conversation to a system to then ensure that the business is aware of how people are performing. I mean, that's the biggest challenge with most of you guys. You hire a salesperson and you go do your job. And then they do nothing because they're busily running around like headless chooks trying to figure out what to say, who to say it to, and where to go and say it. At least with this system in play, with the tools in play, with a clear management and measurement structure, you know your answers far faster as to where you need to focus your attention with them and your clients.
So you're getting a more qualified, more reliable pipeline, getting a bigger pipeline.
Yep.
You're maximizing the opportunity with every customer. I guess the key term there is does that result in cross-sell and upsell? I think what I'm hearing is it does, yeah?
The platform itself, because it covers the breadth of the business, does that by nature. There's in the basic template that we use, there's 144 questions that I will ask you over the course of either one session that is a whole day session, or I'll ask you it over the course of a 12-month period, depending on your size, your desire to engage, and away we go. And it really is just giving that clean structure for me to have a way to focus account managers and salespeople's attentions. It's also a good way to wash through qualified and non-qualified prospects too, because if in those first 5 minutes they're not the right fit, you find out by using this tool.
Yeah, so it's qualification. It's about having a strategic business conversation with a customer. Now, those workshops, one day, do you charge for that?
Depends on the customer. I generally don't charge for those, but you absolutely can. And as you mature, and this is the important part, as you mature, you should. Now, whether you charge for that on a subscription service that you include, so you've got a VCIO as a service type offering that you are charging people, and part of that is that annual planning process that you run in your first quarter, however you choose to do that, that is you should be charging is the short answer. For those of you who are SLI friendly, you know you should be charging for assessments. You know you should be charging for upfront services, unless you've got a long-term reason to not charge for that. Our existing customers might be one of those. Yeah, you should be charging something.
Yeah, in our MSP, we use it to qualify new prospects as well, and to say, hey, are these guys going to be a fit for us? Do they see value in IT, or do they see it as a cost?
Correct.
All right. Hey, look, we got the Q&A open and the chat open on Teams. So I'm really happy to take any questions that we might have got from people who are online, because basically, there's a fair few people here and keen to hear. Aaron, while we're waiting for anyone to come through, the recommendations, do you tend to customize those to the MSP service stack?
In what I do, no. But where I'm sitting as a sales leader is I'm more interested in having, so because I'm starting from a nothing base, I've had some MSPs who absolutely have gone through and customized every single one. I've had some MSPs who and Andrew, I'm going to gently toot your own horn here, but because you guys have spent the time that you do writing those recommendations in the way that you have, they are well thought out, they're reviewed regularly, and I know that they are going to ultimately achieve at least getting my clients to the first part of that path. At that point in time, we'll tend to focus or fine-tune the scope, but it gives them value, just having that detail sitting there. I don't tend to. I'm the sales manager, sales leader in the room, so no, my attention to detail in terms of that intricate piece and writing reports, it's not something I want to do. I would much prefer to be in front of the customer, having the conversation, capturing the opportunity, and then bringing in pre-sales or technical to actually go and explore that and expand that with me. And that's the structure I would tend to bring in play.
So you've uncovered the business problem, and then you qualify it far enough to bring in to make it worthwhile to invest in the technical. I like the comment here that Vince has posted in the chat. He says if they're not paying for the assessment, then they're not engaged and it's not a good fit. I think that's bang on the money. If they're not committed to it, why should you be? Yeah.
Correct. And I certainly do agree with that. The one variance, I guess, to that would be your existing client base. Because your existing client base have been looked after in a certain way by you for such a period of time, that while you can go and charge them for that service, particularly your marquee clients, you are going to pay for this service over and over and over and over and over again just by going and engaging with them using a tool like this. So I do agree with you for net new clients, particularly of a certain size, if they are, and the critical part here is in your target market. And your target market as an MSP is not 25 to 500 seats. Your target market is a far narrowed version of that. You know where your sweet spot sits. If you're a 10 to 30 MSP, be a 10 to 30 MSP. If you're a 25 to 50 MSP, be a 25 to 50 MSP. Go at that number and go hard at that number and go and grow them, because you should then be able to scale at the rate that you want to.
So just coming back to some of the things you said as we started the call, and some people have joined since, what I've heard you say is that you like using this because you go out there into a sales team, you've got, people in a range of skills, junior and senior, and you're giving them a systematic, repeatable way of asking the questions that an MSP business owner tends to ask instinctively.
Yep.
And what we heard on the customer advice call the other day was that builds trust. That builds, therefore, a trust relationship where the customer knows the MSP's got their back. The MSP now knows what's important. They can then tailor recommendations and upsell and cross-sell into their customer the services that their customer want. But one of the comments I think one of your clients, Ben, said was, actually lets the customer talk themselves into the roadmap.
They do. And this is the thing, because I'm ultimately asking inside every question I ask, is this something that you must do? Is it something you should do? Or is it something you might get to eventually? And they're answering that question for me in terms of their own priority. So when I present it back to them going, here are the things you deemed as the highest priority for your business in the next period of time, they're the ones that told me that. I mean, they're not going to argue with themselves. That's a little crazy if they do.
Well, yeah, some of your clients are in Australia, so who knows? So if we look at the roadmap, the outcome of that recommendations is a roadmap for the customer. Do you find those roadmaps are generally accurate, reliable? Do you sort of say, here's your roadmap, go to it, or do you have a conversation to lock that in with them?
So I tend to, again, as you highlighted before, I tend to uncover where the problems are first. Where the Cambium response or the get Cambium response tends to be pretty large. Most of these guys that you're dealing with for the first time are going to come out with 30 or 40 recommendations that they're never going to deal with inside the next 12 months. And so I guess utilizing the must-dos as a focal point and going, when are we doing these ones? This is probably our next 12 months. And how would you like us to focus our attention on it? Those ones enter your pipeline. Those ones then get handled by account management. Those ones then have more strategic conversations where you wrap a more intelligent, technical aligned business conversation around whatever that project looks like, where it's architected appropriately, where you bring the right resources in. That's where I tend to then use the roadmap as a backfill, not as part of the initial report. The initial report is just a high-level list of here's everything that you came up with. I'll then backfill into the dates from there in terms of when we're actually going to focus our attention. And that feeds really nicely into the quarterly business review. The QBR is where I tend to want to get that stuff accurate. And it tends to be going, when are we going to focus our attention on this?
Yeah, I was trying to stay away from the QBRs on this one because we've covered them in earlier webinars.
Yep.
I think the key for me is, are you doing an operational dashboard where you say, hey, look, aren't we good? Here's all the ticket responses. Here's the status of the backups and the EDR and so forth. Or are you actually saying, these are the 5 things in your roadmap that you wanted to get done, and here's how we're going with those? What's a QBR for in your experience? Is it checking in or is it alignment?
My QBRs are very different to a traditional MSP. I'm not going to talk about your competitors, but one of them talks far too tactically in terms of all the stuff that needs to be done and the numbers and the widgets and all the rest of it. And to my mind, my first 45 minutes in a QBR are tell me how your business is going. Tell me what your current challenges are. Tell me what things are coming up for you that's going to dramatically impact your business. Tell me what major projects you've got running right now. Tell me about the things that are going to impact technology that you either want to do, you're thinking about doing, or whatever's going on from that side of the fence. My first 45 minutes, I do not even touch a widget at all. And the next half an hour is mostly responding to the surveys that I've asked you to come back to me with, or tell me how your people are feeling and how you're feeling. It's very different.
So how does that work better as a QBR for the MSP? What's the result the MSP sees if the QBR is business aligned rather than widget aligned, as you call it?
Yeah, the widget align so that part then it ensures that my account managers are still having those business conversations. They're still moving the needle forwards on those. The widgets I will provide as part of that QBR, but it's an appendix to the report. And what I want to highlight, what I tend to want to highlight out of the widgets is the areas we want to focus our attention on. So if I know that a particular area, it might be response time, it might be a after hours number, whatever that might be, it doesn't really matter. Pick your widget. But whatever that number is, I want to call it as a highlight in terms of this is what we're working our attention on. But the majority of that quarterly review is focused on what are the major projects? Where are they at? How are we moving them forwards? What is the actual business value that you're going to achieve at the end of this conversation once we're done? And it keeps the quarterly conversations as an intelligent business, what's moving the needle properly here. And it leaves those monthly, more tactical conversations, or weekly in some cases, to a more tactical one-note follow-up, action and reaction, follow-up, close. It's the more frequent you get, the more tactical and granular you get. And the account manager should be having those conversations as well, aligned with tickets, aligned with all that piece. But at this level, quarterlies and annuals, they are strategic. Do not waste a CEO's time talking about numbers. They don't care.
That was the point. That was the point I was going to get to, is what's the CEO care about? And they care about how are you helping them drive their revenue goals? How are you helping them to drive their risk mitigation strategies? How are you helping them do the things they care about?
At the C level, that is literally what they care about.
So as you've been out asking, through MSPs that you coach, asking them to talk to customers about what's important, what are we're coming to the end of 2023.
Yep.
2024 is are we less than 2 months away now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so soon. What are you hearing for 2024 from your MSPs? What are clients telling them?
So most of these people that I'm working with are starting to build this process out. So Cambium's fairly new for those. So they're only starting to have these conversations now for 2024. They're new conversations, and most of them are that everyone's concerned about security. They have been for a while. They are still going to be. They still remain concerned about security. Some people, that the interesting piece for me is the gulf between the capables and the haven't started yet. There are some organizations out in market who have just done it. They've just got it done. They've just jumped on the bandwagon. They've gone, whatever it takes, just do it. Now, whether they've been breached or not, it's a whole nother ballgame. But that it doesn't actually matter. There's a highly mature mob and there's a highly immature mob.
So cybersecurity is about protecting the customer. The customers have also, what we've seen is a massive explosion in the use of collaboration tools. Teams being a really good example.
Yes.
And so they've now got data scattered through Teams. They've got stuff that's shared, stuff that's not.
The data piece is critical.
The ability to automate parts of their business by using forms and flows and creating business solutions in 365 that an MSP can do. I'm sort of trying to stretch you to get your top tips for places that MSPs should be investing. Obviously, get Cambium's number one, right?
Of course. So
getting a structured sales team.
Why I guess I'm and the three areas you're right. You've nailed the brief on all of them. There's so much data going out there right now that there's a couple of problems with that much data going on right now. There's no governance around where people are meant to save things, where people are meant to focus, and there's not enough attention. Well, there hasn't necessarily been enough attention on providing and thinking in the eyes of their users. They think at management level of, if I create a sales folder, people will put things in the sales folder. And if I create a sales account management folder, things will go into the sales account management folder, where users don't think like that. Users think however they think. And part of that body of work is engaging with the people who are actually using the system rather than making assumptions and doing it yourself. But as a result of all of that, data goes everywhere. Data in things like Power BI and reporting and tool sets like that, the ability to make intelligent business decisions is massive. There is a massive push at the moment because of the volume of data that you guys as MSPs have an opportunity to, as an value-added sell, put data tidy, data collaboration, SQL management, SQL table management tools into play with a wraparound managed service agreement that you can make your customers Power BI and dashboards and everything else look sexier than they've ever been. And the final one that Andrew touched on was the SharePoint data saving collaboration piece. If people are able to communicate, we're seeing a lot more people coming back into the office. We're seeing a lot of organizations pull back to a 3-day in-office week. Teams is still prevalent. It's not going anywhere. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and particularly in a sales environment. My response to my guys is, if you're in the office, you're not doing your job, go do your thing, go find people, go talk to people, and then come back to the office and talk to the rest of us about what you're doing. And away we go. But again, the reason why I pause is Cambium's going to uncover all of those. Every gap you have, it'll ask.
That was perfect. I just see the opportunity. If we were only talking cybersecurity with our clients, we are just scratching the surface of a much broader opportunity, because all of our customers rely on IT to achieve their business goals. All of our customers wanting to achieve revenue goals, wanting to mitigate risk. And if we're as the MSP, we understand that and we can present a solution to them, we're going to grow our pipeline, we're going to upsell and cross-sell, and particularly we're going to add value to the customer and value to us. And if you can empower your sales team to have that conversation from your most junior to your most senior consistently, then you're going to be away with a roadmap you can plan to, that your client can plan to, and you're going to know what 2024 looks like. Aaron, thank you for sharing that wisdom with us. I really appreciate it. Are there any last observations or any last questions from anybody on the call that we'd like to cover off? Well, look, it's 1:30, so we said we go for half an hour. We've talked a bit of rubbish to start off, and then had a really good conversation about making sales teams more successful. I'd just like to thank everyone for investing 30 minutes of their day with us. And if anyone's here at IT Nation in Orlando, come along, pop by booth 106. We'd love to see you. Aaron, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you at our next customer advisory board in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for coming.
Happy sales.
Cheers.